Welcome to the show, everyone. I have my friend Jay here, and he specializes in self-actualization. We are going to speak on values and mainly how you can be your best self. So, Jay, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm grateful for your time.
Oh, thank you for welcoming me here. It's a great opportunity. I'm looking forward to having a proper conversation with you.
Yes, sir. This will be good. We'll provide some great value for everyone. So
100%.
let's speak on what was the turning point in your journey, the main turning point. And of course, I know that there are many turning points, but what was probably the biggest thing that changed the direction that you were going on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely say it would be when I did my first ayahuasca ceremony in the UK. So that would have been, I can't remember what year it was exactly now off the top of my head, but so I was living in London at the time. I moved to London when I was 27. And then it was a big change and a big difference. I'd never lived in London before, and within a couple of years, I was really, really deeply unhappy, and not happy with the direction my life was going in. Didn't really know what I was going to do. I was started to binge drink a lot more, and started abusing drugs a lot more, or in a different way than I had I'd used drugs recreationally in the past, but I think it took a darker turn when I moved to London. And then around at the age of 30, I attended a ayahuasca ceremony weekend in the UK, in the countryside, and that was just a massive turning point for me. That was huge. I still remember it very vividly as if it was yesterday, and that really accelerated. That really took me on a genuine journey of personal development and growth.
Psychedelics have always intrigued me. I've never gotten the opportunity to try it, but it's interesting. A couple weeks ago, I watched a documentary on an ayahuasca ceremony, and I was almost immediately hooked at it's not nearly like a new age drug, something that is manufactured, and it's more of a natural thing. What was the ayahuasca like? And I'm very curious to hear the details of that. And also, I know that the drinking, it turned into more of a darker avenue rather than a recreational, just a enjoyable thing. What really prompted you to do that ayahuasca ceremony? Did you just feel like something needed to change and you were willing to try something brand new?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I don't. When I first, so when I was on holiday with my girlfriend, now wife at the time. We were in holiday in Goa, in India, and I'd picked up a book by Daniel Pinchbeck. I believe his name is called Breaking Open the Head, and that's he goes through various different uses of psychedelics in different cultures around the world, and ayahuasca and iboga and DMT and this kind of thing. So I read that book, and I was like, I just remember thinking, I really, really want to try this. It sounds amazing. It sounds incredibly hard, but it sounds amazing. So I think when I first sort of tried to find a ceremony to be able to attend, which obviously I did. It took me a little while just to find stuff, searching around on like psychedelic forums and trying to find where I could possibly meet someone who could put me without. I couldn't afford to fly to Peru or anywhere else, so I knew I had to do it in the UK. So when I was going to the ceremony for the first time, I had no idea what I was getting involved in and what it would be like. It was more just, this sounds like a good experience. It sounds transformative, but it wasn't until I actually did the two ceremonies on the say did one on Friday and one on Saturday. It wasn't until I did the two ceremonies that I actually realized how truly transformative the medicine is. So I kind of went with more out of curiosity and came away with like so much more.
It's what I perceive it to be like is we have our ego and then we have our higher self. And from what I've heard, it seems like it just smashes your ego and makes you aware of the deeper self, the one that is connected to everyone. Like humans benefit so much from sunlight, from being in nature. We need fresh air. And I I'm very intrigued by the idea of how something so it's medicine, it isn't a drug, and it has so powerful of a experience. I'm curious why it is so shunned by the mainstream, and I feel I've never tried it before, but if what was the experience like? How did you come away from it? What were your feelings? And yeah, summarize that for me a bit in depth as best as you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like prior to attending the ceremony, like I knew I was unhappy and I knew, I needed something to change. And I'd started meditating maybe quite soon after I moved to London, actually. I started meditating, but so I had a practice going at the time. But when I attending the ceremony, what it did was it kind of revealed the more blind spots, or it started to reveal blind spots that about myself that I just wasn't aware of. And it took me to, like you say, it took me to a deeper level than and gave me a lot of perspective on myself that I'd never really had before. Like I was obviously, I was still a self-aware person, but like it was just a different level of self-awareness and revealing blind spots. And I think that the medicine is definitely a journey in itself where I've been multiple times now over. I've probably done maybe 20 or so individual ceremonies over like 14 years or something, and every time it's completely different, and every time there's a different level of growth or a blind spot that I need to work on. And the one thing I would say is that the medicine is incredible and transformative, but it's actually the work that you do outside of the ceremony that's really the key to the growth. Like ayahuasca will reveal blind spots and heal things within your body and within your psyche, but it gives you the space and distance. I see it like it's like a factory reset, basically. Like you say, it strips you right down raw, breaks your ego down, and then gives you space to be able to look at yourself and your life more objectively. And then you can then get homework. The medicine gives you homework assignments for you then to go away and continue that journey of self-improvement and do that work outside of the ceremony space. So, and I think this is it. Like I talk about the blind spot. So, I distinctly remember, and we'll circle back to the start, and I can talk about the ceremony and all that stuff if you want. But I distinctly remember leaving after doing two evenings of ceremony, and leaving on the Sunday and walking out. I still remember it now distinctly. We were in this quite funny actually. It was like a tiny little church hall in a really small village in the middle of Cornwall in England. So it was like in the middle of nowhere, this tiny little village, really cute little village. So I come out of the hall on the Sunday morning, and I distinctly remember standing on the car park and looking out across this beautiful rolling English countryside. Nice sunny day, and it was a fantastic view, and just kind of stood there. And I realized for the first time that I'd built a wall around myself, which I didn't even realize was there. And the wall had completely collapsed. And I remember standing there and I felt so free and liberated, like all this weight had just been taken off me. And I distinctly remember thinking, I didn't realize it was possible to live like this. And I didn't realize that I'd constricted myself and built this invisible wall around around myself, around my heart. And it was so liberating to walk away. And I felt for months afterwards, I kept getting insights, and I felt I was in a really good place, and it allowed me time to really deepen my meditation practice. And that's when I really got really deep into meditation and more genuine spirituality. Now, it's not to say that there was still years afterwards of, you know, struggle and working through addiction and growth. There was still a big journey to do, but that was a first really major step. The medicine really helped me propel forward by years. They say it's like having like a year's worth of psychotherapy in one night, and I can certainly attest to that. It was probably more than a year's worth of psychotherapy.
I think for all humans to understand just that, they are in some way protecting themselves, building a wall for their ego. And I love your point about it wasn't the ceremony that cured everything. It was the insights derived from the ceremony that gave you a guideline to work towards. And because people get tripped up with the idea of instant gratification, and that's not at all what this seems to be. It seems to be a blueprint for you to structure life in the way that the universe, the source, the creator, whatever name or label you use, wants you to transform into. And the ignorance is bliss, that saying really hits me deep lately, because I'm 23 and I see most of the people I grew up with living in a state of mind where they're under the new religion of materialism,
Yeah.
not pursuing their best self and living for the weekend, that type of mentality. You work your 9 to 5, you make money, you impress people with your material goods, and then you go and run from reality right after work on Friday to Sunday.
Yeah.
But the ayahuasca or psychedelics in general, I'm very excited to try them, because I know there are barriers that I have. Even though I'm pursuing my best self, there's always things that we can tear down and rebuild stronger. How you grow muscles, they break and then they grow back stronger. That's a principle that everyone has to understand, that on the other side of pain, that's your opportunity to improve. And we just have to delve deeper inside of the addiction. What are we really running from? There was this study that people would much rather get shocked by a quick electric shock than sit with their own thoughts for 15 minutes. And that's mind-blowing, how we're all running from something. And when we really take charge over our lives, who we are, how we treat people, and our perception. I love the quote, "The world isn't what it is, it's what you are." It's each individual has their own way of perceiving things. And that brings me back to that wall. We all build up that wall, and it's like, man, are we going to expand and search for a better self, or do we just sit in our little comfort box and fucking
Well, it's funny, isn't it, that unfortunately, I think in the last 10 years in particular, with social media and smartphones and devices and whatnot, that we've built a society on dopamine hits. in various different forms. And so people's level of distraction and addiction as various different kinds now, I think is just accelerating, and it's got a lot worse. Like you say, like people can't sit alone now for a couple of minutes without checking the phone, or texting someone, or watching Netflix, or pornography, or alcohol, or drugs. Like all these things are really just a distraction from the present moment and from being with yourself and being with your thoughts. And I think some of that's unintentional, because obviously there's a whole industry built around, particularly with online, but there's millions of dollars and lots of very, very intelligent people who are designing these platforms to be incredibly addictive, because they want eyes on the screen, they want time on the app, or time watching Netflix, or whatever it might be. There's a whole industry designed to get you addicted and get you hooked on these quick fixes. And obviously that's changing your brain chemistry, and it's altering your level of concentration, and it's numbing you to yourself and your life. But I mean, it becomes like this is just an accepted normal part of day-to-day life. And I think, going back to what you said earlier, asked why I think that ayahuasca's, can't think of the exact question you asked now, but it was just about why ayahuasca's kind of pushed to the fringes, or is not accepted. I mean, there is starting to be research about ayahuasca to cure depression and addiction, along with a few other psychedelics. Now, there has been a change in the last few years towards that, but I think that it's still the correct use of plant medicines in the correct setting within a ceremonial space is I think it's too much of a challenge to the status quo. And I think that the sort of heavy materialists and the people at the top, without sounding too conspiratorial, it doesn't serve their interest to have a population of awake and evolving people, because that's counter to the economic system, it's counter to the political system, it's counter to the vested interests of a minority of people. I think if psychedelics in various different forms have been done since the dawn of man, pretty much, and you had shamans, you had the correct usage. It was, people understood these medicines in the various different forms, whether it be mushrooms or psychedelic or ayahuasca or iboga or various other manifestations of these various plant medicines, and the synthetic versions too. These things are a challenge, because these things accelerate people's growth, but also I think make people more aware about what really matters, which is, family and love and connection and community and spiritual development, and creativity. All these things that don't require, they're about personal responsibility and about people connecting. It's not something that you can outsource and package it and sell it back to people, because I think it makes people, everyone I've met on ceremony, it always makes people question everything about their lives. And I really think that's a challenge to the status quo. But more and more over the years, I think I've seen ayahuasca's, the awareness of it, the medicine, has spread a lot more, and there's continually flows of people who are discovering the medicine for the first time and are healing themselves and going on these incredible. It's such a, like, I feel so honored and blessed to have been able to have the opportunity to do the medicine, and also to meet so many wonderful people at every ceremony who's willing to do the work and owning their own shit and supporting each other. And then the benefit, the positive energy that's created in these spaces then ripples out into the world, and that's happening all over the place. And like I say, reiterate the point, like I don't see it as a magic bullet. I don't think it's something that's going to solve everybody's problems. It's not going to, we're not going to be singing Kumbaya and living in this utopia by any stretch. I'm really too much of a realist for that. But I still think for some people, for a lot of people, it can be a real catalyst for real change and for really deep personal and spiritual growth.
The saying, "A patient cured is a customer lost."
Yeah.
Our mainstream has corrupted humans at their very core. I'm not sure if you've watched that Netflix documentary of the Google executives and the Amazon, the Facebook people coming out, and they quit their jobs because they came to the realization of how purposely manipulative and addictive they made the apps. And they just had a realization that it wasn't in line with their ethics and morals. And that brings me back to what you mentioned about ayahuasca. It's not a magic bullet, but it clarifies what is actually important in your life. Is it the car, the job, and the money? Or is it a balance of communication, meaningful work, taking care of your family, creative endeavors, and knowing your values? That is so important. It's a shell shock for sure, because when I started my transformation from materialism to pursuing my best honest self, there's a lot of dark things that are revealed about your ego and how you lived prior to pursuing a better version of yourself. And yeah, I look forward to exposing or experiencing that psychedelic activity, because it's so in depth. It tears down your barriers, and I'm already very much a enlightened individual, but there's always things, the blind spots that you spoke on. There will forever be areas that we are not paying attention to that do need more focus and more development.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think it's a, like I think Jung said, like the process of individuation is a lifelong. Carl Jung said that it's a lifelong endeavor, and we may never get to the ultimate individuated, self-actualized state at the end, but that's the journey. That's the beauty of the journey, that we keep going, and we can keep growing and discovering new things and revealing new things about ourselves, better things about ourselves. And I think it's a fantastic journey to be on. And it's not easy. Like you say, sometimes you've got to trudge through the shit and get through the other side. And you've got to go to some dark places oftentimes. Everyone's journey is different, but I think you go through that darkness, which is something I've certainly done. You go through that darkness, but then it's so much sweeter when you get to the other side. So even though the journey can be a painful one, it's so much more rewarding when you come out the other side and you can take a look back at the whole journey and go, fuck, that was incredible.
You need to experience those darkest times rather than living in a robotic state of living, which is a challenge, but you're more so living at 50%. So nothing is too bad and nothing's too good. Or you go to that deep, dark area where everything is so rough and you're exposing all of your limiting beliefs, your preconceived notions, your judgments, you're putting on everyone that you come across, the complaining mentality where it's everyone but your problem. You don't have anything to fix. And once you accept these things, it's definitely trudging through shit. It is not easy, but when you come out the other end, you can really appreciate life for what it is rather than being hooked on dopamine and addicted to scrolling and consuming rather than creating, addicted to porn rather than having a real conversation with a beautiful girl, which it's like technology has granted us the ability to have these things so easily, but it's such a half-ass version of what you get when you really put in the effort to build yourself and mold your values into a person that you admire rather than living that autopilot 50% half-ass type of living.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, to step into that place of real authenticity and meaning, like you really have to start the process of stepping outside the matrix. And I think, particularly the last couple of years of have convinced me that the Matrix is a documentary. It's not even a movie. And I like to refer to it a lot because it's so good that, you can either be you can take the blue pill and stay in the Matrix and live life on a particular frequency, and or you can start the process of trying to wake up and get perspective on the Matrix itself. Like you're still living in it, but at least you can take an elevated or start to take elevated perspectives on like what's going on in the games that are being played. And I think there's lots of tools and there's lots of ways to do that, such as like, plant medicines and meditation and spiritual practice and breath work. And also, the last few years, a big thing for me the last few years has been looking at stuff like core beliefs, and these programs that we've got running that have been putting us from a young age. So core beliefs is a big thing that I think is really important. I did a bit of shadow work just on myself, looking at identifying some of these early programs that have kind of impacted on the rest of my life, that I've got unconscious that worked through, and then also more recently looking at emotional intelligence and trying to find those blind spots again that I can iron out, because I want to be the best version of me. I want to be the best father. I've got 3 kids. I want to be the best husband I can be. I want to be a contributing member of my community, and I think that there's so many different tools there. And I think that if you're so inclined, then I mean, even if you're watching this now, you're already someone who's either awake to the Matrix or waking up from it, and you're on that personal development journey. And I just think it's a beautiful thing. Like you say, you're shifting into being more into a creative space of life. Like your life is a work of art, and you are the artist, and you get to create with it whatever you want. And it can be all grey and dull, or you can pre-buy it and you just follow a template version of life and just sleepwalk your way through it. Or you can create this beautiful mosaic and this incredible piece of art that you can look back on when you're dying, when you're on your deathbed, and go, fuck, look at that. That was amazing what I've experienced, and the lives that you've touched, and the beauty that you can create with your life.
And the biggest regret that humans have is living a life that wasn't true to themselves. And that's a statistical fact derived from talking with dying patients on their deathbeds. That is the exact saying that they give. And it shows in that we have to take the route to be unique. And a tough thing for me a long time was being a people pleaser. Do we want to live in a distractive state of mind where we do follow that template that you spoke on, which is, I just felt inside, deep inside, I was becoming bored with that lifestyle. I was hanging out with the same friends, just smoking weed all the time. And there was no creation happening. Sure,
mm,
we threw the football and did some things, but eventually there comes a roadblock where your inner self is wanting more. And I like to think that all humans do have that similar aspect of the difference between their ego and their higher self, but often humans don't even come into contact with that higher self. So part of what my drive is to help people get less distracted. And what helps me personally is what you spoke on a bit, doing breathing practices or spending time in nature, which is an active meditation, going to the gym, another way that you're just involving yourself in activities where your mind isn't able to think. You're more so actively experiencing something in a manner where those thoughts of the future, the thoughts of the past, they are completely erased because you're so embracing that moment.
yeah, that's. I think it's the big piece of that is like, because we live in such a distracted society that I mean, this is universally true, that um, a, a lack of appreciation for your own mortality and the finite time that you've got on this planet um, is really a vital thing to remember. That it's obviously something that people run away from and that people don't want to admit. But I think if you are conscious of your limited time on this planet, and that one day you will die, hopefully in a peaceful manner, but who knows? And so there was a period of time for probably about a year or so where I did a lot of Buddhist death contemplation, and that was incredibly powerful. It was around the time that my grandfather died of cancer, and I was doing this meditation at the time. It was incredibly powerful, and people think it's a very dark and depressing thing to do, but I think to actually have that real felt sense of your limited time, your fragility as a human, and what that means, the people that you love, the friends that you've got, the life that you live, it brings it all into perspective when you know that at some point in the time in the future, hopefully a long way in the future, you will breathe your last breath, and then you'll go on to the next journey, and who knows where that will take. But like by being distracted and by being living life on autopilot in a waking sleep, you're robbing yourself of really the fullness of life, and the fullness of, it's like realizing you've got the ability like to realize your physical potential as well as your spiritual potential as well as your financial potential. Like, that's what we're here to do, is grow and unlock that, all those different aspects of ourselves. And I think if we're tied to the couch watching endless Netflix or various addictions or whatever else, that's just a barrier. That's numbing ourselves down just to get through. And I think that I can well imagine that everyone will get the realization at some point. You either realize it early and use it as a catalyst to really fuel your life, or you'll realize it right at the end. And I'm sure the last words that many people speak are, "Oh fuck," because you're going to wake up at some point, and so it's better to wake up while you've got time than when you've got no time and you've suddenly got months to live or weeks or days. Then it's too late. Then it's really too late.
It's a challenge to get rid of our natural ungrateful attitude that we often go through the days and they just mesh together. We're
Mm,
not aware of how important and unique the friendships are, how we treat people, the animals, whether it's your actual dog or a squirrel, observe it and have some curiosity about the actual complexity of this earth. For our bodies, I love the simple example of, I'm talking with my hands, I'm moving right now, but I am not at all telling myself to do that.
mm,
There's so much complexity within our whole world, and you do have to take a step back to appreciate it, because it's just natural to get caught up in what society shoves down our throat, the materialist religion. But when we get away from that and we use every day, every experience as something to learn from, just living with a natural curiosity, aiming to truly live rather than exist.
mm,
And there is a massive abundance of beautiful things on our world, and but they're just overlooked, and we have to slow down. Get The phones are a beautiful thing. Like me and you speaking right now is a blessing. This wouldn't have been able to occur 100 years ago, and with more opportunity comes more responsibility.
mm.
So we're living through this time where it's our choice to actually realize the potential we have, that we're meant to communicate and brighten other humans. I love the word, the frequency, the energy we put out, because as a high schooler, a younger person, I didn't at all realize this. But now I view myself as a light, someone who loves to speak with others, who always brings kindness, generosity, and integrity to the table. And when someone is on a lower frequency, I'm able to see that rather than letting my emotions be triggered and I lose self control. I say it's okay that they're on a lower frequency. I'm not going to allow their insults to bring me down.
Yeah,
And it's not that people who are pursuing their best selves are better than other people.
yeah,
That's an egotistical thought. It's more that we understand the depth of this world and how energy really spreads. It's a beautiful thing that each individual comes to understand in their own time. Like you said, hopefully it's not within their last breaths. Hopefully it's sooner on the journey.
yeah, 100%. And I think that's one realization that I had, that, it's everyone's on their own journey, and some people will want to slow down and smell the roses, and appreciate the small things in life and look for their own, personal growth, etc. And then there are a lot of vast majority of people that have got absolutely no interest in it at all, and that's not they're not called to that. And I think there's a and I think it's for the people who are called to be their higher self, and to try to make a positive impact in the world in whatever small way they can do that. To have, understanding and compassion for all the other people who want to play that game of division and arguing and distraction and, you know all that shit. And it's like, those people can play that game, and then I'm trying to play a different game. By no means am I perfect. I'm no guru. I'm no enlightened master. It's just, I'm another bloke who's on a journey of self-discovery to be my best self and raise, healthy children, and try and do my small part to make a positive impact in the world. And that's it. And like, everyone's got their own journey. People wake up or they don't. And I think and that's how it is. You know, it can be I find it confusing at times as to why people would want to sit and like watch like reality TV, for example, every night, and that's what your evening is: drinking wine, watching reality TV, go to work, live for the weekend. Like, but who am I to judge? You know, like that's what their choice, and that's what they've decided to do. And there's a lot of other people who don't want to take that route, and I think that there's a lot of people who've probably even more so woken up over the last couple of years. I think it's a blessing and a curse, like everything in life. Just like social media is a blessing and a curse. If you've got a hammer, you can build a house, but you can also kill someone with it. It just depends on what you're going to do with it. And I think like COVID and that whole thing, without getting into that stuff, is a blessing and a curse, because as awful as the whole experience has been, and the response to it, and all this stuff, and the division it's caused as well, I think it's also caused a lot of people to reevaluate their lives, reevaluate their values, look at what's actually meaningful to them. And there's so many people, I've met so many people, particularly in the last 6 months, who are beautiful souls, who want to connect with people, want to build local community, who are homeschooling, which we're doing now as well. It's for all the negativity and bad stuff that's actually come out of the last few years. There's lots of beauty still appearing all over the place, and people, I think it is accelerating people's awakening globally. And I've certainly connected with people now all over the world who are all on their own journey, but the one thing in common is that the last couple of years have shaken up their reality to such an extent that I think you either then start to wake up, or you desperately want to go back to sleep. So I think the last couple of years has really accelerated this process of awakening.
I like the point of whether someone is divisive and argumentative, or are they on that pursuit of their best self. Well, either option, it's not for us to judge, because certain people are chose to grow and to flourish, while others are okay with watching reality TV and drinking wine every night.
That's another ego trip as well, isn't it? That like if you become you can use personal development or spirituality or whatever as another ego trip. Look at me, I'm better than everybody else. I'm so enlightened, I'm so spiritual, I'm so pure. It's another fucking ego trip. And so I think it's reminding yourself that you are special, but you're really not special at the same time. You bringing that humility to the personal growth journey, and whether you're creating or whatever you're doing, it's coming to it with humility, and that whatever stage you're at in your journey, don't get comfortable there, because there's another stage that's around the corner, and there's another perspective to take, and there's more growth. So coming to it with humility and not letting your ego try to hijack it. I think that's probably the essence of what I was trying to get at. It's is a challenge for sure, but I think that's the beauty of it as well.
I could say that's probably the one continuous challenge that we will have, even pursuing our best self. That ego is always going to be there. The ego never disappears, and we can control the ego, we can manage the ego, but there's always going to be moments where you get cocky or arrogant, overconfident, and that's when our habits, our structure, our meditation, we have the tools that must be implemented to slow down that self-corruption that is very common with humans. It's a continuous path to realize when that voice is occurring. And I love that the difference of yeah, I am working to be better, but that doesn't mean I'm better than the person who is completely complacent. Not at
Mm.
all. It's just something that was meant for us. We were no longer enjoying the sleepy sheep lifestyle. And you can't force people to learn. You can plant seeds and nurture others, but when you try to force something, for me, I'm trying to educate my sisters because they're very much not aware of the matrix at all. And I've come to the realization that, holy shit, the more that I try to force my knowledge upon them, the more that they say, fuck you, Justin. So it's a very fine line of backing off at times and allowing everyone to, we all, I think, have the same path, the same direction, but the route that we take, everyone has a different route.
Yeah, 100%. I think, yeah, like what you touched on earlier, I think it's about you've become the light that attracts others. So you don't have to even, it's not about giving advice, or it's not about trying to help wake people up, or um, it's about really being the light yourself, so that that radiates out, and that will attract people who are so inclined. And I think that's where I want to be. I want to be at the point where, like, I've raised my frequency to such a point that um, it becomes magnetic for those. And if it doesn't, if it'll attract the people it attracts, but then for other people, you want to be, I think, being at a stage where people meet you and go, fuck, look, I want, what's that bloke got? What's he doing that I'm not doing? Like, just to get the, and then you go about your business. So you're not, you sort of change, you're making a positive impact on the world just by your presence, your frequency, that it doesn't have to be said. It's your way of being is such that it's a light for others. And also as well, like, you know, with my own personal journey, like going through a lot of darkness and depression and all that shit, and then just being able to come out the other side and become you know a different person, essentially. Like, all that stuff's dead and gone, and that's in the past, and using those lessons then to actually be yeah, to be a light, to show that you can go through all that stuff and come through the other side, and life's good. That change is possible for everybody.
It's not easy to put into words the experience of traveling through your past experiences into a higher frequency person. A lot of the things that I've gone through and that I'm working to articulate for people, it's so deep that the words are almost not efficient in describing what we've experienced and had to go through to raise our frequencies. It's more of a innate, deep down urge to continually grow. And the big thing that helps me is asking myself questions. I'm constantly speaking out loud to myself, and really, whether it's the meditation, the reading, or the journaling, getting into flow states that allow myself to get a bit bored. And then I can listen to that voice, the voice that may be telling you, well, you're drinking too much, or why did you react in that way to
Mm.
someone saying something? It's how we carry ourselves that we are able to attract and raise our frequency, attracting those people like a magnetic force that you spoke on. And all these things, oh man, I wish that they were taught to younger age people. But at the same time, I guess you really have to just find yourself lost or in a dark space And then eventually you are pushed by the universe, whatever, to learn, to fix or correct your habits. Because often how people live in that bland template lifestyle is they're completely numbing themselves, indulging in whatever, overeating or addiction or a toxic relationship. I love this saying. So many people get in a relationship so they can be mediocre together rather than being fucking sad by yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a sad thing, but I realized it and it's
Well, and
urged. Continue.
no, I was going to say, and that's a good point about relationships. It's like, I think people, yeah, that's a really good point. And then also people use relationships as a crutch because they feel there's something deficit within themselves, and so then they have and this is why a lot of relationships fail, because they think that the other person is a crutch to lean on, to either hide away from being on their own and exposing those deficits within, or thinking that that other person is going to make them complete in some way. And I think when you've got two individuals who come together and then are codependent without even realizing it, it's a recipe for disaster, because you're going to hit a wall at some point. Where I think if you come together as two people who are on a journey and trying to better themselves, then your relationship's going to be far more successful. Because people use everything to hide away from themselves. Yeah, like, having a relationship or sex, or like casual sex or TV or all these different things. It's it's an interesting, it's endlessly fascinating, like the journey that we're on. And like you say, some people are so inclined that they're naturally just curious and caught. Like, I know that's how I've always been, and it's a blessing and a curse. And sometimes I think I'd rather sort of I wish I was just living a very waking sleep life, because it seems quite easy from the outside. You accept consensus reality as it's given to you. You go through life as a fixed, solid object in time, and that's your life, and you're quite content with it, and like that's all good. And you go through, and that, I think that's cool. Sometimes I wish that that's how my brain worked, but for better or worse, it's just never been like that. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are that. They've just got that natural curiosity. There's something within them that asks, is there more to it than this? Is there more to me than this? And they are so inclined to follow whatever various different paths they could possibly take.
That question right there is probably exactly what sprung my development. And I think it is exactly that. Some people just are more curious, and it's a battle to wish that we were simple-minded. And I'm not using that term to say that I'm smarter than others, using it in a way that man, my brain just doesn't stop. And sometimes I wonder what it feels like to live an average, mediocre lifestyle and not have your mind rip you to shreds for it. Because I know we've both lived in that average lifestyle, but there came a point where we were just tortured by the everyday experience. And it was that question that popped up. There has to be more to this. There's no way that I was meant to simply do what I'm doing right now. And yeah, it really is. It's a challenge. I think either way, though, from the outside, we can look at people living a mediocre life and assume that it's easy. but who
Yeah.
knows? Their brains could be ripping them to shreds as well. And maybe they're just not taking action on it.
Yeah.
I know for us to get to where we are now, much action and pain had to be experienced.
Mm.
And but once you trudge through the shit, pain is just opportunity. And once you push through, I love how there are certain habits like eating ice cream. You feel good before it, but you feel like shit after it. And on the other side, you have going to the gym where you feel bad before, you don't want to go. You're making up stories.
Yeah.
And this is at the beginning of the journey. Once you get into the gym, you actually realize how beneficial it is.
Mm.
But in the beginning, your mind plays tricks. You don't want to go, but after the gym, you feel fabulous. And another example is you sleep in. Okay, it feels good to sleep in. What happens when you sleep in too much? You get ripped to shreds by your mind. And what happens when you wake up on time? Well, you don't always feel too good, but a couple hours later, your brain says, good job. So your mind is just playing fucking tricks on you all the time. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's I think, and I think the one thing that, like, going back to the frequency aspect of it, I think it's like identifying the areas, like such as the media, the mainstream media is low frequency stuff. Um, there's a lot of, and I think it's going through your life and identifying where's the low frequency people or the low frequency uh, media, etc., that's actually pulling me down, and like turning those things off, and then looking for the things that are going to um, looking for the beauty that's actually going to help elevate you and raise your frequency, so that you're it's got a different energetic component to it completely. And I think that putting yourself, and in addition to that, and relating back to what we were saying just now, is putting yourself through periods of intentional asceticism. So putting yourself through those periods of intentional struggle, or intentional suffering, so that gives you a greater appreciation for your day-to-day existence, and it also gives you an opportunity to helps you to expose the blind spots as well. So for instance, like for the last month, for the month of April, I practiced Ramadan as a non-Muslim. So I spent 30 days of fasting and more intense period, trying to do more meditation. And it was a fantastic experience. It was very difficult. So getting up at 4:30 every day, and then not eating between around about 5 a.m. and about 6 p.m. It changed through the month, obviously, but I did that every day. And it was an incredible experience. And that period, there were definitely things that going through that month of asceticism and contemplation was great to highlight aspects of myself. And like, it was really, the food and drink is the thing that people like latch onto. You can't eat or drink during the day, but it's not about the food and the drink. It's actually the internal struggle that you go through with your ego and the emotions that you've got to deal with, and going through that intentional period of struggle is a great opportunity to actually, like meditation and like ayahuasca or anything else, you're putting yourself through something that's going to challenge your ego, that's going to, it's disrupting the normal pattern of your day-to-day existence, such that it gives you insights into yourself and areas that you can then start working on and taking forward.
Fasting is one of those activities that it brings to light your inner voice. And I'm curious, so in Ramadan, I hope I pronounced that right, but how many hours? What's the intervals? There's no way you went 30 days without eating at all.
No.
What was
So
the intervals?
so it obviously varies. It follows the moon cycle and the sunrise and sunset. So it depends on where you are on the planet. So for me, this season, it's the first time I've ever attempted this. I'd get up at 4:30 in the morning. I'd have sometimes I ate and sometimes I didn't. And then the fast started at around about 5 a.m. So then I wouldn't eat or drink anything between 5 a.m. and when the fast broke around about 6 p.m. And then I'd break my fast with a meal and some water. And I'd eat a little bit then before I went to bed. So essentially I was doing like one meal a day, but without water as well. So I'd drink in the morning. The main thing I'd have in the morning was water, and then I'd have no food or water then for the next, however many hours it worked out to be, like between 5 a.m. and 6 p.m. or so. It's like
Wow.
13 hours.
Surely that had to be challenging with the nighttime meal. Were you, I'm assuming your calories were very much depleted, and or were you managing to eat all the necessary calories to maintain your weight in one meal?
Uh, it was difficult to do, particularly once I was a few weeks into it. The start of it was quite easy, but then obviously your stomach starts to shrink, and then I'd find that I'd have my evening meal, and some days I didn't really eat a lot at all, and then other days I'd eat more, and so it's definitely becomes an increasing challenge as you go on through the month, because then you're becoming more depleted, you're tired, um, and that's where you're really struggling with your triggers become more you become more easily triggered, put it that way. So you can, got to be very mindful of your temper and your energy level and all these kind of things. So but it ebbed and flowed. Some days I'd be really hungry, but like literally I couldn't eat because my stomach had just shrunk from fasting every day. Because oftentimes I'd have one meal a day, and so I'd eat my evening meal, but then I wouldn't eat again for 24 hours. I'd drink water in the night and in the early morning, and then I wouldn't drink water. So I'd probably abstain from water for like 13 hours a day. But oftentimes I'd have one meal every 24 hours. So yeah, it was definitely a challenge. Like
That sounds intense. I've done a 40-hour fast once, and I think fasting has a lot of benefits, but to do it for so many days in a row,
yeah,
that's a challenge, especially right now. I'm in the state where I'm really trying to put on muscle, and it doesn't correlate well
no,
with that. But to have a control, a management over your feelings, your mood, your urges and temptations, that's what is derived from embracing unnecessary suffering.
yeah,
And it's a very powerful aspect to life when you volunteer to put yourself through challenge. That's so helpful. And I'm getting to the point where I'm tired, but this conversation, I so thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you. This was just a great opportunity. I haven't, each individual I speak with is always so unique and brings something different to the table. And for anyone to not learn from this, I don't think there's any way that insights could not be taken. Your unique perspective of life is Jay's one of one perception. And you just brought so much to the conversation. I'm absolutely grateful to be able to speak with you, Jay.
yeah, me too, mate. Thank you so much. Like it's been and your insights as well. It's been a really, I think we could talk for hours. I feel like we've got we've got so much more to talk about. So we'll have to do it again. But thank you so much for inviting me on and having this opportunity to talk to you today. Like, I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, the statement, we could talk for hours, I agree. There is, so when you meet people on a high frequency, there's just so much to delve into. But for today, that's enough. And I definitely would love to have another conversation with you. So I'll be in touch for sure.
100%, brother, 100%.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you so much. Thank you for people watching as well. I hope everyone's got something from this. I really do. I think this has been a really good conversation. So I'll be really interested to hear what people take from this, and getting feedback about it would be really cool.
Yes, sir. That's our goal, to help the individual. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Enjoy yourself.